Okay, so here is my answer to the thread that I posted like 3 or 4 days ago. I meant to do this sooner, but I'm still recovering from what I was under, so I wanted to wait until my voice was a little bit better. So, sit back, relax, grab a cold one, grab your popcorn, because this will be an event. Okay, the year was 1999, and Britney Spears was puking all over music and had infected pretty much everyone, including myself. And not proud of that, but that's life. So, my mother was in an attempt to change my music habits. And so I begrudgingly selected a handful of CDs at a Christian bookstore. This was one of them. And my friend at the time, who I'd known this guy, since grade school, pretty much, third grade practically. He had this. I saw this there, and I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't bad, and so I decided to pick it up, along with some Rich Mullins albums, and I've shown those CDs to kind of poke fun at stuff that I usually do. But among the artists, and of the two discs, I think that the first disc is the stronger of the two. But among the tracks, probably won't be able to see it very well because the text is really small, but Stripers, To Hell with the Devil. That was really my introduction to metal music, although I didn't know it at the time. And it was one of those, I liked the song. I thought the picture the picture of them, they looked like girls. It was really weird. So that kind of started not only my metal introduction, but also my hatred of glam, because they look like girls. It all started in one fell swoop. So that was the beginning of it, although I didn't know it. This album, in the summer of 2001, continued the trend. Still like this album, even though I had a bit of a falling out with it, because when your sisters start asking for your music, you don't listen to heavy music. That music's not heavy anymore. If your sisters start asking for it, and they listen to Christina Aguilera and Gwen Stefani. But after having my issue with them over that, I found it a couple of years later and decided to add it back into my collection, and then I found the vinyl copy of it, which I'm very excited to have as part of my collection. But continuing on, discovering Motorhead through the WWF when Triple H started to use theme songs sung by them. But there was a field trip, I remember, in the 7th grade. And this was one of those, I went to private schools, religious schools, pretty much, from first grade to 8th grade, went to a public kindergarten and a public high school. And they had they always had these rules of, no, this was before the iPod. So, no Walkman, no Discman, no none of that. You couldn't have that. Of course, I didn't give a shit about rules. I brought mine anyway. And a friend of mine was listening to it, had it on the radio, had this radio station. I didn't know what it was, but he was listening to it. He passes it off to his friend, who's in the car. He says, "Dude, it's Metallica." Now, I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about at the time. I didn't know what he meant. But a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm thinking, interesting. And so later that day, after the field trip was over, went back home, school's over, and all that, turn the radio back on. It's still on that station. And I listen. And I listen. And I listen. And I keep listening. And I'm hearing stuff that I've never heard before. I got an introduction to Audioslave with Cochise and a whole bunch of other cool shit. And this started, Godsmack, Disturbed, System of a Down, Korn, and then this was around the time, Disturbed broke with The Sickness and Toxicity and all this cool stuff. And I'm listening to, Chevelle, The Used, and all this incredible music. And whoa. I couldn't believe it. And that became my escape. And the radio station, Z-Rock, out of Orland, Chico area in California, NorCal, that became my sanctuary. And, pretty much after that, I had my headphones on my Walkman, and that's what I was listening to, because I couldn't have CDs. This was actually the first album I ever bought. Although this wasn't a copy. I bought it on CD when it came out. And they, but it was mind blowing. And then about a year later, scenes change. Mom throws me out. We're not going to get into that. So I'm living with my dad, and he brought me up on the Eric Clapton, the R.E.M., the Guns N' Roses, the classic rock, Police. He listened to a lot of classic rock. So I've had that introduction and that side of it since the beginning. But as it happens, I'm 14, we're driving on the freeways. It was typical of us to do. And we're listening to the radio, and all of a sudden, this strange, unusual drum pattern starts over the radio through the speakers, and then this riff comes in. Dun, dun. Launches, of course, into that famous anthem we all know as Iron Man. And I sat there dead silent, listening to this sound that I'd never heard before, or since for that matter. And I had to find out who this was that I was hearing. So I asked my dad, and he said, Black Sabbath. And this was, again, still before, there was no iTunes, there was no iPod, there was no none of that. You know, I didn't have a Best Buy or a music shop. I had a Walmart. Walmart doesn't carry Black Sabbath. So I did the only thing that I could do, and that was the Columbia House Music Club. Flip through their metal section, find the Black Sabbath albums, Black Sabbath Past Lives. Because that was the only Black Sabbath I could get my hands on at that time. And I get the CD, I play it, and I play it, and I play it, and I keep playing it. And this led to discovering the heavier side of Metallica. You know, the old stuff. And I get launched into this amazing journey that's taken me, you know, 13 years later. It's like amazing. So, you know, I was completely floored hearing that song, and that set me on a journey to find. I started with, you know, it was like, you know, started with Sabbath, went back, and then worked forward, and was amazing. You know, something started from that little thing that just, you know, dude, this is Metallica. That phrase and that radio station started what it started. And, you know, who would have thunk it? You know, so in a way there's, you know, there were two introductions. There was the side with Stryper when I was 11, 12 years old. And there was the reintroduction with Iron Man by Black Sabbath. And all of that. And it's, you know, it's like, wow. And then everything blows up, and I had to get heavier, and I had to get faster, and I had to get more evil, and I had to get more and more and more, and I did. So those are my metal roots and my metal origins, and I'm keeping this a lot shorter than I thought I was going to, so this is good. And to my second question, favorite instrumental, The Hellion into Electric Eye, off of Screaming for Vengeance. And no, I have not bothered to count my freaking album collection. And Just got another one in the mail today. Added that as an addendum to my current vinyl update series that I will be completing soon. Thank you, VC. Thank you for watching. Awesome. I'm out.